All right, I'd like to call the January 14th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting to order.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Changuch. We're going to go to item number 3 on the agenda, the roll call. Just noting that 2 members are not present tonight, Isaias Moore and Jessica Rosenbrook. The remaining members listed on the roll call are present, as is staff and myself, solicitor, and Brian McAdam, the engineer. The next item on the agenda is the reorganization of the board, as this is the first meeting of 2025. The first order of business is for the commission to elect a chair. So do I have a motion from one of the members to elect the chair of the Planning Commission?
I'll motion to elect Wes Barrett as chair.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, can we take a vote? All in favor of electing Wes Barrett as chair of the Planning Commission, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Wes, you are the chair, and I'm turning it over to you to handle the election of the vice chair and the secretary.
All right, sounds great. Thank you. All right, so then can I have a nomination for the vice chair?
I actually would like to nominate Ryan Kennedy as vice chair.
I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, Ryan, congratulations. And now for the position of secretary, is there a nomination? Our current secretary is not here today. Ozias is not here today. Is there a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Ozias Moore, secretary.
Second that.
I will second that.
All right, discussion. All in favor for the guy that's not here, Osiris, secretary.
Aye.
All right, so we have 3 ayes. I think that's everything that we needed to do for reorganization, correct?
That's right.
Fantastic. All right, we'll continue on. We have minutes in front of us. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes from the December 10th, 2024 meeting?
I'd like to make a motion to approve meeting minutes from December 10th, 2024.
All right. I'll second them. Martine, you were not here.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. So we have a properly second discussion, hearing none. As mentioned, Martine is going to abstain. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Well, actually,
By the way, I
you
abstain.
want to hold off on that. Yeah. So, and then opposed, and then abstaining.
I'm abstaining.
Yes, okay. 0, 1. All right, and that covers our minutes. First item on the agenda is under new business, Western Lehigh Services preliminary land development. So if the members from that group will come up and then introduce yourselves.
Good evening. My name's Ben Kutz.
You know what, can you pull the microphones closer to you?
Sure.
Yeah, just so we can hear you.
My name's Ben Kutz with Gilmore and Associates, the engineer for the applicant.
Good evening, Jake Longenbach, Vice President of Western Lehigh Services.
Julie Wagner Burkhardt of Stevens and Lee. I'm the land use attorney for this application.
All right, where do we want to start? Do we want to start with a brief introduction, or do you want to just tell us where you're at and start that way?
Yeah, I don't know how you guys handle this. Typically, the township, you guys give an introduction to it, or would you prefer us to give?
I
an
could give a
overview?
little introduction,
Yeah.
Wes, and then we'll turn it over. to the
Yeah.
applicant. I mean, it'll be brief and you can follow up with your. So this is a plan that was submitted by Western Lehigh Land Development. The plan, which I'll pull up in a minute, proposes to develop roughly about 20.88 acres, which would accommodate construction and building supply and showroom business. The subject property is located within the commercial zoning district, and which in the commercial zoning district provides a place where the township residents, others can purchase goods and services. They are proposing to develop the commercial business. The existing property now is currently farmed field. Mr. Kutz?
Yeah, so At this point, so we've received the review letters from the engineer, zoning officer, traffic engineer. I believe the vast majority of comments are, will comply. We'll work with those consultants to work out some of the few details that are remaining on the plan. The purpose for tonight is really to discuss 3 waivers / deferrals that the applicant's seeking at this time. Not seeking recommendation for conditional approval at this time. We want to clean up some of the remaining items to be addressed. So I guess at this point, walk through those 3 waivers or deferrals for discussion. The first would be request to allow the submission to be considered preliminary final as opposed to separate preliminary and final submissions. The second is regarding the requirement for sidewalk and curbing along the frontage on Trexlertown Road. And the third is related to that item, but is associated with road widening for the ordinance requirements. The justification for waiver request is this is a state road here. The widening is not something that is required by PennDOT at this time. There's also not existing sidewalks or curbing in the immediate vicinity here. And also, widening at this time would create, an inconsistent road width either direction, which can be a bit confusing for drivers. It's unnecessary at this time. Keeping it at a narrow width is also a bit of a traffic calming measure as well. So the applicant seeking a waiver, I'll certainly have a conversation around deferral if that's more appropriate.
Just to clarify, you haven't technically requested that.
So the waiver request letter you're saying, or?
There were 2 waivers requested. I don't believe that the waiver request for widening was officially submitted.
They were submitted along with the November 11th submission packet, and the engineer even does acknowledge that in its review letter.
I'm the engineer.
Okay, I'm sorry, then your letter does
No,
acknowledge.
just to clarify, waiver request letter dated November 11th has a waiver for preliminary final, which is not a big deal. Second waiver in that letter talks about sidewalks and curbs, as your engineer had said, but it doesn't say anything about road widening. Our letter referenced that a waiver is required. If you're not going to propose any widening or shoulder or anything, you do need a waiver. I just wanted to clarify that there were not 3 waivers requested. I think that the revised plans will include a 3rd waiver, but just to clarify for the sake of the meeting tonight, there were only 2 waivers officially requested at this time. That's all.
And apologies.
Can you pull your microphone over? Thank you.
Certainly. Apologies in the sense that, my coworker who was intended to be here, got sick today. So I'm getting up to speed a bit more. So, I'm not as familiar with the timing on that waiver request. I guess a question for you would be then, given this functions as a recommending body, is that something that can be discussed and entertained tonight? Or are you saying that it would need a formal request for that additional waiver would have to be formally submitted before the planning commission could give consideration to it?
I would be more comfortable, considering the amount of revisions that are needed for the plans. I'd like to talk with township staff and with the traffic engineer to see if we feel like additional widening is needed. If we need a more shoulder or something, before plans, wind up getting approved.
Okay.
So I'm not going to discuss technical details tonight. I would say that, we have entertained waivers for widening. But at this point, I don't want to get into specifics about, well, we'd like 2 feet, we'd like 4 feet, whatever. I think your office and mine We probably could do a Zoom meeting or something and kick around, what exactly the township may want or need along that frontage and go from there. But I wanted to just set the record straight, not to suggest that a waiver wouldn't be considered, but technically speaking, for the purposes of the planning commission, only 2 waivers are officially requested at this time.
Okay,
That's
all
all.
right. Appreciate the clarification. Apologies for the misstatement there. Sure, yeah, so, I guess we could discuss the 2 waivers that were formally requested then.
You can discuss any of the waivers. They're just not giving a recommendation tonight. So your reasoning and any questions that they might have, you can discuss any of it tonight. You just have to update your waiver request before you come back for a recommendation. They're not going to recommend anything or, say yay or nay on anything tonight.
Okay, so you're not even planning to act on those 2 waivers at this time?
The waivers will be within the whole recommendation. So they do one recommendation that
Okay, all right.
approval with conditions, and then the waivers are at the end, yay or nay.
Okay,
Usually.
some
Yeah.
municipalities, I know it can be a separate thing, so you'll do
Yeah, it's
the
all one
2
here.
and then come
All
back and.
one time.
Okay. all
Right.
Understood.
Do you have any objections to the waivers that you want to talk about or talk through with us so that we know whether or not it's something that we should request the next go around?
Specifically, I mean, the first one is one that is handled, I mean, it was already mentioned that it's been reviewed by the engineer. And I don't believe that's an issue. The question of curbing and sidewalks is probably one that would open up to more discussion. Either of you want to start with it?
I don't have anything off the top of my.
Well, specific, I guess I was referring to any concern about waiving sidewalks in that area. I mean, that's, the first one I'm saying is, I think, something that all of us are going to agree to, but the second one is a much hardier topic.
I understand your reasoning, because I believe there's no other sidewalk. In the letter, it's 10,000 feet, I think. I just hate to start that precedent. I know we can defer it, but I hate to start a precedent of waiving that.
So ultimately, the township's looking for connectivity. Ultimately, as we see in our connectivity plan, our Greenway plan. So again, that the township would want to work with the applicant to see how we can install sidewalk or pathway, something like that, for not now, but for future connectivity in that corridor.
Especially since there's a residential area directly to the north. Can be utilized if it was connected, continue to be
Right.
connected.
And I think on this specific topic, it's really a look much more long-term than the immediate. I mean, there's at a time, I think it was the idea of defer, and then we're finding out, well, how do you go back and get those deferrals? And that's more challenging than just install it now. Eventually, we know that, just look at the township, it's much different than it's been over the years. It just continues to grow, and having that connectivity is very important and beneficial to everyone in the end. So.
If a deferral would be considered as opposed to a waiver, this is just a question, is that something, does the solicitor generally recommend doing a separate escrow then for the deferral of an improvement like that? Or is that something that helps with how you go about eventually
Collecting the money. to
collecting the
actually get it done.
deferral?
Yeah, that definitely helps. Security for it in the future, yeah. I mean, but then that begs the question, if you're going to put security in for it, why wouldn't you just do it at the time you're doing your project? I guess that's usually the question that comes up.
And I don't think there's any precedent for doing an escrow
On
for
a
that yet,
deferral?
that I can remember.
Not in recent memory, no.
Welcome.
It came up in a project.
I guess
It
I was gonna
did.
say,
It was a
this
parking-
conversation's been had, but I don't think there's precedent, meaning that it
Yeah.
hasn't happened yet.
We
Yeah.
talked about it with
Yeah.
reserve parking. Do
Yeah.
remember that, but I don't know if that ever went through, but certainly security always helps.
Yes. But I think the end result is that it's better to have it in place and done, and that is where things are going, and that's been the conversation in the last 5 years or so at this board. So
So just to make sure I'm understanding, so basically not even entertaining deferral at this point. So the
don't defer,
expectation-
just do it. Yeah.
Just to install it, deferral on the curb, probably,
I
correct?
think the curb gets into a
But
secondary
but I
question.
guess if you're putting the side from a pedestrian safety standpoint, right?
Well, I think you're equating that instead of them walking on the road, they would walk on the sidewalk, but you're saying because there would be a 4-inch curb, it would prevent a car from coming over it, but that's still different than walking on the shoulder and walking in a space that's 4 feet in.
Certainly, I guess I'm just, I'm just curious, so, again, this is a PennDOT road, so anything that's getting proposed is ultimately approved by.
Correct.
And they may require the deferral, honestly. That's why I was sort of asking if there are mechanisms for dealing with that, because sometimes where there aren't already existing sidewalks to connect to,
Mhm.
PennDOT will object to fragments of sidewalk until the municipality come back with a plan that it has for completing the connectivity. So in the event that, that's the answer that we get from PennDOT
Mhm.
after we get there, we'll have to maybe sit down with staff and figure out how to get over that.
Well, I can say that projects that we've had in the recent past, the township does not take the area between the legal right-of-way and the ultimate right-of-way. So anything outside of PennDOT's right-of-way is not really
Okay,
their thing. But as it relates to the design with grading and whatnot, we've had instances in the recent past where it was preferred on the township end to have curbing installed. And then when the applicant went in to get their HOP, PennDOT said, we're not going to approve this unless you get rid of the curb. So and that's why I phrased it the way I did in my review. It's kind of awkward for us on the township side because it is a township requirement, but it's a PennDOT road. So I wanted to kind of leave the door open. I think that if anything, there might be maybe sections of curbing that could be added. But again, it's entirely up to PennDOT because they're going to, the curbing itself will have to be in the right of way, in the PennDOT right of way. And I don't want to put the township or the applicant in a situation where there's a battle and we're arguing over something that could just be waived. I think we'll have to see how the revisions go, what we wind up discussing in terms of widening, et cetera, and then kind of go from there. Because I think given where the site is, how much floodplain is there, my initial concern really is to make sure we're taking care of drainage and public safety. So, there are times where the curbing is actually needed because it helps to have the drainage work a little bit better. It's more controlled, if you will. If we can have a design put together where we feel comfortable with what's proposed and the curbing is not needed, that kind of fits in with what PennDOT, may want. Because I think they've been getting away from curbing and trying to go with, roadside swale kind of situation. But I think it'd be worth kind of pushing that conversation back a little bit until your office and mine has discussed, what the township may or may not need in terms of some widening across the frontage, and then go from there. I don't have anything off the top of my head, as to what we absolutely are going to want, because it's not really that, we're not in that position just yet. So it'll, ultimately we may agree that a waiver of curbing would be acceptable. But at this point, I think we got to work out the other stuff first.
So basically, to just summarize then, so it sounds like preliminary final, no issue with that approach, with that waiver. And then on the two traffic ones, one, obviously, formal request needs to be submitted, but that both will be considered in more depth after further conversations between our office, township engineer, and PennDOT.
Out of curiosity, have you had any any preliminary conversations with PennDOT?
I personally have not been a part of those conversations. My understanding is obviously with the two driveways there'd be conversations about regarding those to date. So entertainment of widening, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I assume Sean would know. Just have him reach out to us if there have been any kind of preliminary discussions.
Yeah, certainly.
Right.
Yep.
So do you have everything that you need? I know you've been here before. It's been a bit of time. I'm sure that's a bit frustrating to want to get this project done. I mean, you have the information that you feel, all right, the next time that you come, you're
Yeah,
prepared?
certainly. Yeah, I'll relay this back to Sean, have the follow-up conversations. And unless there was something else in your letter that you felt needed to be discussed tonight, again, talking through it with Sean earlier, it seemed like it was essentially will comply for comments, a few detailed, or questions that.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
He wants to make a comment. Public comment. Come on up.
My apologies. We're going to just quick open up public comment. Mike, if you want to come on up to the podium and introduce yourself.
Mike Siegel, 1939 Astor Road. I live downstream of this property. I'm probably the closest one to your downstream. I went through the review letters by the township engineer. I fully agree with all the comments that are on there. When I was on the planning commission in Laura McCounty 5-10 years ago, we worked on the assisted living site for this property. And both myself and Keystone Engineer sat down with the applicant at the time and worked out the drainage patterns for this property. It's quite unique as the fact that where the two driveway entrances are there, just below there, the Spring Creek actually will flood and come across the road there. And I've seen it 2 to 3 feet deep over there and the road closed. So drainage is an utmost of importance to me. Any infiltration basins in there are worthless. They'll be underwater, the whole entire thing. So that's something that, everybody here should be cognizant of. That property floods like the Dickens. It's below a special area called the Jungle. It's part of the Greenways plan. It's a special Lehigh County inventory area that has endangered species and animals. It's one of the few areas in the entire Lehigh County that does not require stocking. There's natural brown trout right back there. And I'm really concerned about the drainage. The use is fine. I have no problem with the landscaping firm going in there. I think it's a great use for the property. But the drainage, it has to be looked at by the planning commission and by the engineers, conservation districts, and DEP, because that area floods. I've lived there 30 years and I've seen the water come across the road several times. The main culprit is not the property itself. It's this trailer store, the rental U-Haul place up the street that has a basin in there that has basically no control function into it. It releases the water immediately from all the area by the shopping centers and comes roaring down that road. And if anything, I'd like to see something be done to modify that, because that's what's going to flood their driveways there. The idea of putting curbing along the road was always in effect when I was looking at it with Keystone, was because we wanted to find a way to control the runoff coming down Route 100. So curbing was essential for runoff control. Now, I think I may have a solution for your sidewalk issue, because the applicant hasn't brought this up and the township hasn't, maybe has forgotten about it. But when the assisted living facility was going in there, it was our guidance that that was going to be part of the Greenway area down there along the creek, where we were going to have a walking trail, paved walking trail that would connect all the way up to the intersection of Spring Creek and Route 100. Excuse me, Spring Creek and Treachertown Road, because we have a sidewalk system up there. And we wanted to make Creamery Road and Ancient Oaks West Conservation Park a connecting area there. And that trail would shoot off and go up to the Jungle area. And then they wouldn't need, if people wanted to go walking along the creek and go fishing or just go for a walk up there, they would have a greenway there rather than putting the sidewalks up along Route 100. And I would love to see the applicant take that deferral that they're thinking about and put it in the construction of a paved asphalt trail back there so we can make that connection out to Spring Creek Road where the sidewalks are gonna go up there. Those sidewalks up there have been deferred from the rental U-Haul storage facility over there, and it's been done that way so we can make the connection from Ancient Oaks West Park over to Creamery Park using sidewalks on the east side of Spring Creek Road, and then we'd have a crosswalk to go over to the trail that runs behind, that would eventually run down to here to the jungle. And it was an ideal situation, and the applicants wouldn't have to spend so much money on what I would consider a useless sidewalk down there, but instead would have a walking trail along the creek where even their own, their staff could go out down there and go fishing. But again, those were my main concern is the stormwater drainage, the infiltration needs to be looked at because like I said, the soils are hydric component soils down there. Any infiltration will be almost impossible. I would rather see some type of retention pond down there that we can hold the water back, which would be decorative for them, putting a Otterbein fountain in there and make a retention basin. But that's what the soils are conducive for down there. But those are my main drainage issues. And again, the driveways being too close to each other. That's something that PennDOT is going to have to work out in their scoping meeting, but I think the sight distance coming around that bend going east on Treachertown Road is going to be a problem because without a deceleration lane, if you have trucks turning in there to drop off stone or landscaping trucks pulling trailers, there's going to be rear end accidents there unless you have a deceleration right turn lane there. Or on the others, I don't think you'll need it on the left turn going in there, but at least on the right turn, you're going to need a deceleration lane. And that's where I think your curbing is going to come in. Thank you.
Thanks for the input. Appreciate it.
I can address one aspect of that comment. I don't know if this is what he's referring to, but there is going to be a 10-foot public access easement granted as part of this, project along the Creekway. And that was actually one of the conditions of the conditional use approval that was granted and accepted by the applicant. So that will appear on the plan, on the final plan as a public access easement.
I believe there's additional comment. Mike, just because there are people listening online and so that it gets recorded, if you had additional comment, if you'll just come up to the mic. Did you have additional comments? Yeah, if you can just come up to the mic, yeah.
I fully agree. I just wanted to make use of that sidewalk money to be used as a actual paved walking trail along there or a gravel walking trail rather than just wasting it, in my humble opinion. My other question I forgot to bring up is, it was mentioned in the engineer's review letter that they appealed the conditional use hearing. And I'd like to know what things that they did not want to comply with.
I'll address that. That actually is still in litigation, so we're not going to comment on that right now. The court, the Common Pleas Court issued a decision recently. The appeal period for that decision is still pending. So it's still under review by the township.
It's in the Lehigh County court system, correct? Not the state common.
Lehigh County issued their decision, Court of Common Pleas. So the
Okay.
appeal period pending to go to the Commonwealth Court is still pending. The deadline is the end of this month, so it's still being reviewed by the township.
I'm just concerned that it doesn't conflict with anything that this land, getting approval for this land development with whatever they're appealing in there. I haven't looked at the, application of what they're actually appealing, but can you at least comment on what they're appealing on?
It's pretty complicated. There were numerous conditions that were appealed. It's public. You could try to find it in the Court of Common Pleas records if you'd like.
Okay, I'm just concerned that the township would approve something with the conditional use being held up. that. That's really
That's,
unusual.
they're not getting a recommendation tonight.
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Okay, they're not getting a
There's no
recommendation tonight.
recommendation
That's
tonight.
why they're not getting, well, that's not why they're not getting a recommendation tonight, but that's part of the reason, I would say.
Okay,
That's
that wasn't clear to me or to the rest of the public either. So
Okay,
thank you.
no problem.
Any additional comments from the applicant? No. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, the next item that we have on the agenda, additional new business, NP Land Holdings. We'll come on up to the table and then introduce yourselves.
Good evening. Eric Schock, Fitzpatrick, Lunson, Buba.
Alan Fornwalt, engineer with Keystone Consulting Engineers.
Lisa Pector with NP Land Holdings, and to my right is my partner Nick Nadeau with.
All right. You want to
Yeah,
start? Go right ahead.
we can start, or I didn't know if Mr. Train.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to introduce it?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was getting a plane up. I can do that. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so the plan in front of the board tonight is, commission is NP Land Holdings Land Development. The plan proposes to consolidate two parcels, total 7.53 acres, and then also develop a 55,000 square foot building for light manufacturing and packaging of products with the accessory parking and stormwater facilities. The property is located in the Orlick zoning district. This is an infill lot within an existing industrial development. The entrance and exit for the property both exit onto Industrial Parkway, not onto Shannick or Albertus. And it's, like I said, a one-story building that provides parking and loading zones as shown on the plan. Sure.
Okay. I'll have the engineer just kind of walk you through the improvements, but I'll preface that by saying, we received the review letters. Nothing in those letters caused us to think that there's going to be anything major from our end based on those comments, for us to submit a plan. At this point, the only waiver or deferral that we've identified is to ask to submit a preliminary final plan, which we plan to do when we actually put in plan. And if your engineer would comment on that at some point, it would be appreciated that if he would agree. Other than that, it's fairly straightforward. So what we were looking for was, any comments on what we've got, because elsewise the plan's kind of going to look what we showed you already. So, Alan, if you just want to kind of walk through the comments.
Sure. Just briefly, historically, this was two different lots. It was originally intended as some office space. Not many years and decades have gone by. So the intent here is to take those two lots, put them together for a 55,000 square foot light industrial manufacturing facility. And it's oriented such that, as it's oriented on the screen there, the right side would be, your front of the building with the pedestrian activity of people leaving their cars that are parked out front. And then on the left side of the building, I would consider that the rear side of the building would be where the loading areas would be with the truck docks. The intent is to have one, drive-in truck dock. The rest would be your 4-foot elevation difference with your standard truck dock that there's a million of in the Lehigh Valley at this point. Also, there's kind of a square in the one area that's intended for a rest area for the truck drivers that are coming or going. So there's some facilities there that are at least space designated for that. There's two driveways that come off of Industrial Parkway that are at the top of the screen. The intent is that the left one would be for your tractor trailers and other trucks, and your right one would be for the automobiles. Trash
enclosures are shown down the lower left. The stormwater for this site is quite complex as it was originally anticipated with the overall development on this cul-de-sac. So the stormwater analysis actually involves about 3 or 4 different lots and different facilities in addition to what's existing on this property. But the intent is to, we've identified some areas for spray irrigation. And that would be the intent. Again, this is just a sketch plan, but we don't see any major obstacles with that. And of course, from a pedestrian standpoint, there is a proposed connection along the right driveway back with a crosswalk that gets you up on a sidewalk that goes around the building. More than that, can't think of anything else unless you guys have any other questions.
As far as,
Was there?
oh, sorry, I heard you start to.
No. I guess I was shaking my head loudly. No, I don't. I mean, it's by right use. I mean, right? I mean, from everything we saw, you guys don't feel like you need any kind of zoning relief or every plan's gonna need some waivers, but for all intents and purposes, there's not much
Yeah, this one seems
to
like
this.
Final. There may be something else that pops up, as you know,
Yeah.
but we're going into it with, it's gonna be compliant.
Yeah. No, I, we have comments in our letter, but it's more informative than anything else. I did get a letter today from our traffic engineer. There's not a heck of a lot in it that I can share it with the group at some point in the next couple of days. Nothing outrageous. I think if anything, I tried to be diplomatic in how I referenced there's existing basins. Alan's more than capable of addressing, hey, this is what we're going to do. I'm not concerned about it at all. It's kind of nice that they're there because you're discharging to existing discharge points, that kind of thing. So no, and preliminary final, we almost never don't get those requests anymore. So I certainly have no issue with that. I don't.
Right. Yeah, and then we recognize like the additional requirements. Again, we look and we are proposing to comply, and we'll provide the information on the ones that need a bit more information to demonstrate compliance.
And is the expectation that traffic heads towards Route 100 directly through Shonik Road? Not meaning it wouldn't be using the intersection of Albertus and Shonik?
No, yeah, the intent, the general traffic flow today is out towards Route 100 directly.
Either of you have any?
I don't have much. It looks pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, it's good use of the land.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty simple.
I mean, that's what's back there.
Exactly.
I guess the one thing I would like to ask, you don't have an answer, you don't have an answer, and it relates more to the timing. Do you have users for the building, or this is a spec building? I'm asking, before you answer, I'm asking more as it relates to timing. Do you expect the plan will be in the next couple of weeks, or not that it doesn't matter? It's just honestly just a curiosity.
Yeah. No, we feel that this segment of the market, the 55,000 square foot space, has really been neglected by developers. Everybody's been focused on larger buildings, and I had a portfolio of light industrial buildings called PenCap Properties. We serviced that segment of the market. Those buildings had 2% vacancy. This is kind of a natural growth of that portfolio. So I sold the older assets recently. And so we do have some interest, but at this point, we don't feel we would get anything concrete until we've gotten through some of the initial hurdles with preliminary final. We haven't marketed the property yet. We wanted to get through tonight and respect, your initial look and opinion before we actually started marketing.
But whatever comes in will not, at the moment, doesn't appear that it would require any kind of relief for use or anything like that. Because obviously, as Alan knows firsthand, one of the things that the township's going to be concerned about is who's coming, how much traffic are you generating, what kind of traffic, where's it going, that kind of thing. So if there's still kind of unanswered questions. I think you could just be prepared that they're going to get asked. What are you bringing into our county?
At this point, we don't know, but the zoning for this lot does allow for a lot of different businesses that we think would be symbiotic with the environment.
And obviously the traffic study that will come with it will have those assumptions built in.
Okay. And Alan, you and I should probably talk separately. Another project that was proposed here, there were references to how that area was developed and expectations and so on and so forth. So just maybe pick your brain about, what was done before. So.
You're talking about from a stormwater standpoint.
No, really from traffic. But like I
oh,
said, we
okay.
can talk.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, because I think end of the day, traffic is going to be a question that continue on, so.
Yeah. And I'm not just, I'm not anticipating anything bad. I'm interested to hear your
The history.
take on the history as it relates to the study that you guys will do and trip generation, et cetera, et cetera. So that's it. Nothing, I'm not going to drop a bomb and say, oh my God, it's all good.
It's good. Hearing no comments up here. Any comments from the public at all? Hearing none. Anything else that you needed to add? No, we're good. Appreciate it. Thank you.
See you sometime in the.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is the Cherry Ridge Estate Sketch Plan.
Yep.
All right, if you'll introduce yourselves for the record.
Zach Arnold with 7 Development Group.
Brian Boyer with Boyer Engineering Associates.
All right, and Vince, if you want to give us a little overview.
Sure. I'll give you the overview and then we'll get the screen. Okay, so the plan is titled Cherry Ridge Estates. It proposes to develop a vacant 10-acre site with 13 single-family homes. The applicant is proposing the development of this property using the open space neighborhood development guidelines. This property is within the suburban district, and which this proposed use of open space neighborhood is permitted under the ordinance. Just for historical purposes, the developer has been before the board with other sketch plans previously. So I'll turn it over to the applicant.
All right, so yeah, if you can update us where you're at and where you're going.
Yeah, so I think some of the biggest changes that we made was pulling the developed portion of it out of the 500-year floodplain. We did make that major change. That was, I think, last time we were here, we still had some of the road in the 500-year floodplain. So making that change, putting the basins outside of the 500-year floodplain. And really, we're not proposing anything within the 500-year floodplain at this time. And it has a similar shape, cul-de-sac. We align the road with the one directly across from it as well. We are proposing a significant walking trail circulation around the property. So proposing to connect along Wild Cherry Lane. It kind of stops and picks up again on either side of our property, kind of finishing that off, as well as proposing connecting from Wild Cherry Lane straight back through kind of under the power lines to the park that is behind us, where I guess there's like softball, baseball field back.
I do have a question on the path that's, it appears to be in the open space, would that be something that would be public, used for the, open to the public?
Yes, as, basically, we would be, anything that is considered to be asphalt walking trail would be public.
Okay.
Is what we'd be proposing. So that trail system leading you back would be a part of that. And that is where we're also looking to, because we need the emergency access. So by making that public, we looked at possibly making that a little bit wider as well to have a dual purpose. But obviously, have the bollards, stuff like that, the emergency gates or whatever, for access as well for that purpose.
And I noticed that that trail sits in the right, or that looks like the PPL right away or one of the right of ways. Have you spoken to that utility at all about putting a trail in their in their easement?
As long as they're not doing a build or that type of.
I haven't spoken directly.
What comments, questions, members of the board have? Ryan?
My question first go around was, or not question, comment about the floodplain. So now that that's rectified, I don't see any concerns.
Yeah, I remember the big concern was really where the houses were put in correlation to the creek and the floodplains, and it looks like you flip it. It looks like it definitely looks different, so I
Yeah,
can see
we
you
just-
corrected that.
We really brought it up
Mhm.
now. Kind of,
Basically with the infiltration testing, we wind up having to fill in the site.
Mhm.
So I have to build it up, get the infiltration, separation.
No comments from the engineer at all?
Nope.
Specific questions that you have for us?
no specific questions, just more so think, just have a plan that forward on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, you've significantly reduced the number of homes that are in there from, I think, 20, is that what it
Down
was
to
to
13.
start?
Yep.
And this would be all on one property? It would be a homeowners association, but it would also, it would be all,
It would be one lot.
one lot, yeah.
Yes, correct.
Condo then.
Condo, that I was couldn't think of the word for
Yeah.
whatever reason. I couldn't get condo out of my mouth, yeah.
Will you provide a rendering, the final submission?
For the homes? I think it's actually, I don't know, single family, it's required or not.
It is part of our design guidelines with the
Okay.
submission. Yep. I do have this question with,
Yeah.
when you're,
Go right ahead.
I just want to make sure that, the letter that, Chris, our zoning officer, issued, we are looking for the calculations, to make sure that we do comply with the open space neighborhood. So, netting everything out, just that we have to look at that. So, I would suggest we work on that before you come back with a preliminary final, just to make sure that we're on the right path. That would be my only suggestion, to make sure that the density, and the netting out of any of the floodplain areas, anything else that the ordinance requires, that we're on the right path before you put it on the next stage of a plan.
Okay.
And we can, if you need to contact us and we take a look at that with you, but we'll need the calculations. We can take a look, make sure they comply with the ordinance.
Yeah, you would just be looking for, it's basically open space, the open space calculation, what we're developing, make sure we fit the density. So it's pretty much just, I think we have the charts, but just more or less showing that plan is really what you're.
Yeah, I mean, you
shaded
show it on a
areas.
plan or show it on a, give us a separate sheet that shows your calculations, how you come up with the density. Specifically, I can pull it up here.
While while Vince is looking that up, Zach.
Yeah.
Whatever tabulation you guys put together or whatever you have, make sure that's shown on the plan that's going to be recorded. Because we're
Right.
going to want to see how you arrive at the respective density, open space requirement, all of that. It's basically, so show your work.
Yep.
And it's preferable that that wind up on one of the plans that's going to be recorded, whether it's the cover sheet or the record plan itself, as long as it's there so that there's no question.
Like a
And I
zoning
think,
plan or something like that.
I'm sorry?
A zoning plan or something like that.
Well, I mean, like I said, what we've been seeing lately is people have a cover sheet that's got a bunch of information, notes and whatnot, waivers and the list of plans and whatever. And then the record plan itself shows the lots and the road and the right of way. I don't care which plan it's on, but
Yeah.
to Vince's point, we're going to need, they're going to, staff is going to need to know how you arrived at the numbers. And I think given that you've already dropped from what you originally were proposing, I think it would be prudent to make sure that what you guys arrive at is something that Vince and Chris are in agreement with before you get
Yep.
too much
Right.
further with a full
I
design.
think we can take our sketch plan here, do a couple of tweaks to it with our chart, show to them, say, okay, this is efficient. And then we can develop our development plan.
Yeah, and I think
I think
specifically,
that's what you're saying before we go into the hard engineering.
Yes.
correct, and
Make sure that
specifically,
We get to the 13, you're happy with the 13 before we go and go crazy.
yeah, specifically, number 2 in Chris's letter, 22A 40350, and also P, but O is table 104D. And that there's actually a table in the ordinance that you can use to pull out the constrained land. It gives you the type of constrained land and what acreage has to be removed. And then you take your net acres and then you can calculate your dwelling units per acre. So there's a table in there, you can use it. And that's what we eventually will be looking for in the plan. But again, in the interim, before you put pencil to paper on the preliminary final, if you want to send us that, and we can talk about the sketch plan. But like Brian said, eventually your calculations will have to be on there, but you want to do that in the interim to get to the preliminary final or preliminary plan, whatever you decide to submit.
That was table 1.
104D, it's right in the ordinance section that's cited in the letter.
Yep.
You were
I
gonna say
just have
something?
one quick thing to add as I'm kind of scrolling through, looking around at the plan. It is a sketch, not a
Yep.
actual design, but understanding that you need to bring the site up a little bit because of infiltration stuff and getting out of the floodplain and all that. I do see that you're not grading in the floodplain, but the one concern I have, and I think this is something that maybe we would need to talk about as you move forward with the hard design. I'm not all that crazy about the retaining wall right at the edge of the cul-de-sac. In fairness, I know it's not designed yet, but we're not necessarily going to be thrilled if there's a precipitous drop-off right off the sidewalk. So maybe have a conversation with us about before you get too much further with exactly where the wall is going to be and what we're going to maybe need in the way of guide rail or something, just so that it's safe. And in fairness, it is a sketch, so I just figured I'd mention. Otherwise, it is just a sketch, and like Vince said, we need to see, that the open space development criteria have been met before you get too much further. So go from there.
So you're saying maybe a little bit more separation between the wall and the sidewalk?
Well, just from a practical standpoint, I don't want a retaining wall literally
sidewalk that you can
adjacent
fall
to
off
the sidewalk. There needs to be some separation.
Well, there would be some sort of guide rail or.
Well, that's what I mean. And again, in fairness to you, Brian, it is just a sketch.
Hmm.
I'm just saying, as I see it, there's preliminary grading on here, but it's not a land development plan, so we haven't done any kind of, detailed review. I'm just saying that seeing where it's shown, I just wanted to express a little courtesy and say, yeah, you might want to be careful about it. We have another subdivision that's in the pipeline right now where they had a extremely big drop that I was very concerned about. That plan hasn't come back in yet. I don't know how much of a drop you're gonna have, but just please be conscious of, we're gonna be looking at this from the standpoint of public safety, constructability. And then that kind of in a weird way gets to the road itself. Are you going to be looking to dedicate the road?
That was not the intention.
The road will be private.
Correct.
Right. I mean, it's still gonna be, having said that, it's still gonna be built to township standards.
Yeah.
We are still gonna
Yeah.
look at it the same way we'd look
Yep.
at a road that would be dedicated. So we are certainly gonna be concerned about public safety, at the end of that pole and elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Great. Any other comments? I mean, I think you've made the changes from the non-technical side, but the kind of the visual side that we're necessarily looking at with the road alignment, reduction of houses to make it so that none of them are in the floodplain. So I don't think there's any other comments from us. Any comments from the public at all? Hearing none. What we got? Thank you.
Public is dwindling.
The public is dwindling, yes. And then the final item is a rezoning letter from Borough of Albertus. Vince, if you want to just give us an idea of
Sure.
why they send it,
Sure.
so everyone understands that process.
So the Borough of Albertus has sent a zoning change to Lower McCounty Township as well as all the other surrounding municipalities as required by the MPC. So we have 30 days to provide comment. So what I wanted to do was just bring that in front of the commission, if there was any comments, and get it out at a public meeting as well. So I'll just I can bring it up here. Let me go over this first. So what the intention is, there are 3 parcels that are located along the municipal boundary line between the Borough of Albertus and Lower McCounty Township. They're located entirely within the Borough of Albertus. They don't cross the municipal line. The parcels are currently zoned light industrial, office, and research. And the proposal, they're being to be rezoned to medium density residential. Surrounding properties are all residential with the exception of one property to the north, which is in Lower McCounty Township, and that is a small gas manufacturing facility, and that is within the industrial district. So the township is planning to respond with official correspondence to Albertus, Borough of Albertus, in relation to these lots being currently in the flood hazard areas, which overlay these 3 lots. And then also we just want to make concern about traffic patterns as they relate to residential housing and access from the Borough of Albertus and from Scenic View Drive where these properties are located because of the closure of Kern Bridge at Norfolk Southern Road at Church Street. So if you give me a second, I'll bring up the county view and I can show you where these lots are. Apologize for not having this ready in advance. So this is in the area of the Hills of Lockridge development. And the 3 parcels in question, this parcel, and this parcel right here. Parcels, again, like I said, are divided by the municipal boundary, which is along the line of my mouse. I'm sorry, which
think it's
is
to the
along
right,
this
yeah.
line. of my mouse. So this is Furnace Drive. Properties to the west are in the Borough of Alberta's properties in the east are within Lower Macungie Township. Again, these three properties are the properties at question. This is open space that is dedicated or was dedicated to the township and owned by the township. This is the Norfolk Southern Railroad, and this is currently the bridge that's closed. This is the light industrial gas manufacturing facility as discussed, and residential housing in Borough of Albertus, as well as Lehigh County-owned property, which is Lock Ridge Furnace Park. I do just want to show you the flood
Yeah, it's crazy.
overlay zones here. So there are restrictions that are written into their zone change. Potentially, they could put single family here. Either multifamily dwellings would not be allowed, obviously in the 100-year floodplain. The Borough of Albertus does not regulate the 500-year floodplain like we do here in the township. However, there is language in the ordinance that says they cannot build any multifamily dwelling within 300 feet of the 100-year flood. So probably lends itself to maybe 2 singles, maybe 4 singles. I think it's probably a better use of the land at this point. You're not going to get a light industrial or anything there. So I can't comment on the history of how these 3 parcels were light industrial. I don't know if a portion of the borough, Albertus Borough, was rezoned at one time for residential or not. I don't know if it had anything to do with the light industrial within the township, but the light industrial district ends with this property here and then goes back towards Mack Truck and actually towards the property that we looked at earlier today. This is NP Holdings property. Again, I just wanted to bring in front of the Planning Commission and in front of a public meeting for any comment, and happily take any comment from the commission that we could add to our correspondence back to Albertus Borough.
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
No comments.
Enough.
It's open space.
And it looks like most of it will remain open space.
Yeah.
It gets wet sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The creek.
Yeah.
Unless there's any other questions, I don't, I have nothing further on this agenda item.
Great. Do we have, are there any projects? This isn't on the agenda, but I know we've done it in the past at the end of the meeting. Are there any projects that we've worked on? Any updates on any of them that have moved forward?
Sure, I can give an update on what we have. And I did want to, I don't know if we discussed this at a previous meeting, but did want to have these on the agenda just for the Planning Commission to,
Yes.
just so we know, can keep up with where projects are. So we did receive a resubmission for 1470 Brookside Road, and that's a 9-lot residential subdivision. So we will be getting that. That resubmission is in response to staff and also engineering review letters. So we'll be getting that under review. So it'll be showing up on an agenda sooner rather than Hamilton Square lot line adjustment, land develop. That is actually, we received a resubmission for the Hamilton Square preliminary final plan. That is, again, another resubmission in response to review letters by staff and the engineer.
That conditional use
Yeah.
is actually going. The hearing will be reopened on Thursday for a decision by
Got
the
it.
Board of Commissioners.
Okay.
So they had both parallel.
Yes.
side.
Yes.
So that one's going.
Okay.
Yeah, so, any comments on that resubmission, even though it's before the conditional use hearing, would come after that, but regardless. I think everybody knows they're pretty itchy to get
Yes,
finished.
don't blame them.
1208 Brookside Road, the Bethany Church lot line adjustment. We're just waiting for review, comments from the applicant on the review from staff and the engineer. 617 North Crocs Road, mixed use. They're waiting. We did receive a resubmission and it's currently under review and just currently under review. So, I would imagine you'll see these again soon. I don't know what
Yes.
meeting, but
But it's very helpful to hear those. I think the public, it's a benefit to them as well, but also just for us, we've worked on projects and it's nice to see how they've moved or not moved over the course of time, because almost all these projects are not one that just starts here and instantly goes to the next. There's always a lot of work that goes in between them. So I
I don't
appreciate
think there's been an approval. Right? Nothing that
no.
came out of the planning commission. I don't remember anything
Okay.
going forward to an approval.
Okay.
There may not be any. Not sure.
Yeah.
I don't remember any.
But
approvals
we
recently.
also,
Could be.
in comparison to the, I'll say, previous
Yeah.
4 to 5 years, we did hit, the fact that we didn't have meetings every
Yeah.
single month in the year of 2024, I think is notable. So that makes sense that we haven't seen those
Yeah.
final approvals.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think the way that it's going, from what we see is, I think we'll have a meeting.
I think so too. I
every
think so too.
month,
It's a little calm before
2025,
the
so.
storm, or maybe just a reprieve after a whole lot of plans that came through.
So I guess I should say, don't get used to it.
Yeah, don't worry, don't worry. I like when we have a meeting every month, so. Sorry, guys, I do.
With you.
That's right, that's right. Yeah, I like feeling purposeful.
Get you a hobby or something.
Yeah, exactly. I got nothing else to do, right? Yeah, All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn then.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll second.
Second, discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Get Wes a hobby.
Yeah.